Europe, and then back to the States. Anyway, on December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor Day, I was 17 years old, and I was attending a church rally, and the big announcement about the attack on Pearl Harbor. And so I figured I never will have to go. You know, I'm too young. The war will be over with. Well, anyway, I graduated from Lincolnville High School, which is a little town on US 56 between Marion and Harrington. And I graduated high school in 1942 there, and then I decided that I was going to attend Emporia State. I was going to be a civic engineer, and I was going to build the Alaskan Highway from Alaska to Argentina. You know, that was a big goal. But I tell you, one day my brother also attended Emporia State. We both were on the football team, and when we went to play at Fort Riley football team in 1942, why the whole team went down and took this Air Force test because it's going to be a big deferment. And I'm just being a freshman in college, I was going to be deferred 4 years, you know. And so, boy, that sounded good. Now, my brother, he was already over 18, he already enlisted, but he goes and talks my parents into signing the papers, so I get deferred 4 years. Well, so I enrolled in Emporia State, and I was in my second semester, and here comes a letter from the government saying, you're called to active duty on February the 23rd, and my brother was called to active duty, even though he had a year left of college. He went on the 19th of February. So two of us just went right in right away. So I went.
Time passed fast, like 4 years. That was the fastest 4 years of your life.
That's right. No deferment.
Yeah.
And so we got sworn in Kansas City and went to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri, which is on Missouri River. And we lived in chicken houses, little square chicken houses with no stoves in. And it was in February. And was it cold? Then after after a month of basic training there, I went to Carroll College, Waukesha, Wisconsin. And they sent me 5 months to college there. And after 5 months, then I was called to cadet classification in Santa Ana, California. And on the train, we went right through St. John. Well, there we were already black from the smoke from the engines, you know. But and I also met my mother at Newton on the way through, because I was closest to Marion County. But anyway, we ended up went to Santa Ana and got classified as a pilot. And my brother, who taught my parents to sign me in, he washed out because his eyes had defective eyes. And so he ended up in radar training. But anyway, I was classified in 1943, and then I was assigned to the Hancock College of Aeronautics in Santa Maria, California. That's where I learned to fly that Stearman, a biplane Stearman airplane, and I had a challenge learning to make crosswind landings with that. But after I got that, then I went to Lemoore, California, and learned to fly what we call the vaulting vibrator. And then they told me I was in an accelerated program.
Oh.
And so I was in the second half of the basic training. I was taught to fly the bamboo bomber, which was the reason they called it bamboo bomber because it had canvas on the outside and all wood in the middle, you know. But it had two engines on, you know. Well, anyway, in the meantime, Jimmy Doolittle, he took his B-25s off of the carrier in Pacific and had 30 seconds over Tokyo. He bombed Tokyo. Well, and so because of that, the Air Force wanted a movie about 30 seconds over Tokyo. So all of us who were in this specialized training for B-25s in advance didn't get to go because they took out 10 instructors out of Lamar, Colorado, and sent them to Florida to make the movie 30 Seconds Over Tokyo.
Right in the middle of the war.
And so 50 of us students didn't get to go for B-25 training in Lamar, Colorado.
Oh.
And so I got sent to Marfa, Texas. And Marfa, Texas is the biggest town and the biggest county and the biggest state in the United States at that time, you know. And they had prisoners of war there, but there were no fences because you didn't walk away because you'd die of lack of water. But anyway, I got my wings and flew the same airplane as I flew in basic. And got my wings there, so I knew I was going to get my wings because I already knew how to fly the airplane. Well, so I got my wings in April of 1944, and I came home for a month, got a month's furlough. And Marion County has Hillsboro in it. And while I was at Hillsboro, here were POWs walking around, arm in arm, with those Hillsboro girls eating that hilltop ice cream, you know. And I was so mad, I just couldn't stand it, you know, because of that. Well, anyway, I got over that. I didn't have an immediate commander to call and to complain about, so I didn't do that. But anyway, that's mainly about that part of it. Then I was assigned to fly B-17s. And I have a B-17
right here in front of you.
Oh, there it is. There it is. That's what I flew. And
You might get it up and
that
show it.
airplane was made in 1935. And by 1942 and 43, we learned to fly it. It had all the bugs out of it. And so we had self-sealing gas tanks in the thing, and each engine had self-sealing oil tanks in it. And I'll tell you about why that was important to us. Now, Jim Hood down here, he got B-24s, but they didn't have them up to date like that one was up to date. And so we had a lot of safety factors in the thing. I went from Roswell, I went to Sioux City, Iowa, where I picked up my crew. And this is in the fall of 44. And we did operational training, learning the flying formation. I remember on Thanksgiving Day, my crew was mad. They all didn't want to do any flying on Thanksgiving Day. You know, this is America, you know. Well, anyways, but we had to go anyway. So as we taxied out and we're running up the engines, my co-pilot noticed a fire in the number 4 engine. And it's about a spot about that big, you know, but just to see that. So we called the fire department, and they came out there, and they chopped a hole in that towel to get the fire out. And so we got another airplane. But then we got an old junky airplane, had real small brakes on it. They hadn't improved brakes on this old plane. And but we went anyway and did our formation flying. When we got through with that, why we were right off the end of the runway. But the brakes wouldn't hold. So that's then after Sioux City, I went to Lincoln, Nebraska, and one thing I wanted to mention is when I was at Roswell, New Mexico, learning to fly B-17, I flew a plane called Hell's Angels. Hell's Angel was a B-17 that was sent to the state from England, from our bomb group, from 303rd Bomb Group, to sell war bonds. Advertise sell war bonds. Well, anyway, I didn't think much about it when I flew it, but after I went overseas, we went overseas on the Aquitania ship, and Aquitania was a sister ship to the Lusitania. But anyway, it got us over there, and it's in 7 days we got to Liverpool. And what happens is I get assigned to Hell's Angels bomb group. See, Hell's Angels.
Yeah, famous bomb
And
group.
not knowing, and that was one of the first 3 bomb groups of the 8th Air Force in England, and so it has all the records. And the first night I was there, I met Lieutenant Stivers, who went through the B-17 training with me at Roswell, Mexico, and he says, my co-pilot wants to shoot night landings tonight. Why don't you come along and take a ride and learn the brownout? We didn't call it blackout, we called it brownout, you know. And I said, oh, sure, we'll go. And so we piled in. And about the second landing, his co-pilot hit the runway too hard and broke the landing gear back. One of the wheels was broken back. And so we had to do a crash landing, you know, on one wheel. And so we went in the brace position in the radio room for a crash landing. And the thing was, we thought the plane had already stopped, but it hadn't. So by the time we got up and started running for the back door and ran out, then she whirled around like this. And then after we opened the door, I was the first one out of the back door. I landed into a mud puddle, right? The excellent runway, a big old mud puddle there. And guess what? When I stood up, I got shot full of foam on the fire truck. That was my first night in the 8th Air Force. So, but anyway, then of course I won't talk. My time up.
No,
Oh, no.
I guess they'll let you talk, Emerson. They'll let you talk.
So I flew, get over there, and well, the rule was you flew co-pilot for the first 5 missions, and you fly first pilot. Well, I flew 1 mission as co-pilot on that. Then I flew 10 missions in 13 days, one after another, no stop. The 3-day in between was passed to London. So that's the reason why.
Where were you stationed over there when you got there?
Holdsworth, England, which is
Okay.
about 70 miles northwest of London. That's where it was.
That's
The
where
8th
you're-
Air Force was pretty much north of London. The fighters were south of London, you know. And so it was quite an experience. But I flew 10 missions, and then my navigator, who was older than I was, I said, you understand, I was 20 years old, you know, doing these things, and my navigator says, I want to be a lead pilot. And so he goes to the base with my commander, squadron commander, and talks my crew into be a special lead team of 13 planes. That's what you lead. And you get a Norden bomb sight, and you get all the extra in that lead plane. And so we took off 2 weeks to do special training. We call it G-bombing. That's when you have 2 radio stations on the front line, and one, you circle one, the other one you hack as you go across, and you can drop bombs within 600 feet. And so we went. So I lost 2 weeks of flying, easy missions, so to speak.
What did you do on the missions?
I was a pilot.
He's going to tell about that.
Okay.
I was the first pilot on those, and then lead pilot, you know, and so, you know, it reminds me how nice it was to be a pilot on a mission, because you only went to war maybe 4 hours a day. The rest of the time you come back to the base, you went to clubs, read your mail, wrote letters, go to the movies, you know. And so you just fought 4 hours, and you never thought about those poor infantrymen plowing in the mud down below us. But by the time we were there, it was we just had Germany left. We had shrunk all around Germany. Germany left. So another thing we did, we flew in uniform. You see the uniform I have on today? That's the way we flew. Because if we were shot down, we want to surrender to the Wehrmacht and be put in a prison camp. Because if you drop bombs in a city like Hamburg, the people would come out with pitchforks and baseball bats and kill you. Because you kill their home, I mean, you kill their children or ruin their home. And it was very traumatic. So we flew in uniform to be identified by the German officers. And so that's one of the things that we did. I flew 16 missions, 10 on the wing and 6 lead missions. And another thing that was interesting is a lead pilot with me was Werner Göring, who was a nephew of Hermann Göring, the leader of the German Air Force. And if you know anything, some of the secrets you probably don't know, but there was a intelligence officer on his crew, and that intelligence officer had to carry a .45 in his boot for his first 25 missions. So if he ever took a B-17 to Germany, he used to shoot him before the plane hits the ground.
Oh my.
But this Hermann Göring, he was from Salt Lake City. I mean, this Werner Göring was in Salt Lake City, and then his dad was a brother of Hermann Göring, and apparently they came over before World War II, and he was as loyal as could be. After 25 missions, they trusted him. There was no longer a secret person on his crew. Incidentally, Joe Lill from St. John was a secret one on the infantry. He followed somebody in the infantry all the way through the Battle of the Bulge. Just inspect that guy. Well, let's see. I'm the only member of my crew alive. All 8 of them, all the 8 other members are deceased. My ball gunners don't want to get any injury on my crew because the one mission I went was Hofston Airfield, and we went in at 22,000, and that's low for a B-17. And I got 8 direct anti-aircraft bursts under my airplane, so it jumped 8 times. And I counted. I mean, my crew says there are 55, but there's another member of my crew says there's over 300 holes. And so,
300 what? Holes in your plane?
Holes in
oh my God.
the airplane. But 5 of them went through the gas tanks. And the gas tanks were self-sealing. Now, you understand that there's no phosphorus shells on aircraft shells, but there was on fighter plane shells. So if a fighter shot you in the gas tank, the plane would explode. Fighters did jump us once, and there were 3 ME-109s came in this. They came across the French lines and jumped my squadron. And there were 3 P-51s who was between us and the sun, 2,000 feet above us in the sun. Shut those down there, 1, 2, 3, just like that. And my radio operator was in the waist, and we heard the guns going, and we asked him why he's going. He said, "Didn't you see those fighters go down?" So that's one of the things that happened to us. Now I have over 2,000 hours. Now I got to send. Is my time up yet?
No, it's not up.
No.
Okay.
We're going to have supper here.
Well, I don't think you. I think Jen's got enough food for you. I have over 2,000 hours flying time.
When you see us going out the door, that's when you talk too long.
I have 2,000 hours. Jen's got 300 more. Okay. after the war, the thing was that Eisenhower got mad at Patton because around April the 20th, Patton was one day ahead of telling Eisenhower where he was. And so our last mission, we bombed some of Patton's troops. And nothing too bad, but that was one of the problems Patton would do. If you know Jack Hearn from St. John, he carried a 45 revolver, and he would hold up tank trucks from the 7th Army. He was in the 3rd Army. He was Patton's 3rd Army. And they would take gasoline away from the 7th Army and give them
And bring it down to there. Oh, God.
and carry a gun to do that.
So you said Patton was ahead of schedule?
Oh, he wouldn't tell Eisenhower where he was. You know, that just Patton wanted to be the first one there. He didn't want anybody to stop him.
Oh.
And
Didn't he get in trouble with Eisenhower?
oh, sure, but that's
Just
Patton.
listening to orders.
So after the war, I was the 303rd Bomb Group. Hell's Angels Group was immediately disbanded within 5 or 6 days after VE Day. So I got sent over to Bury at Edmonds, which is another B-17 field there in England. And then I got into a program of dropping Disney bombs. Disney bombs are a British bomb that were. It's a research. It wasn't something that had been in place, but they were made. And so after the war, they wanted to see how these Disney bombs would go, because they weighed 4,500 pounds, and they had 7 rockets in the tail end of them, and they were designed to knock out underground factories in Germany. If you've been hearing about the Iran, they want to knock out the Iran nuclear plant. Well, they designed these stainless steel heads on these bombs, and so 3 planes were assigned to drop these bombs in the revetments in France, which the Germans had built in, and they would penetrate 15 feet of concrete or 50 feet of earth, you know. And so what happened was on this, one of these rockets didn't go off, and so the thing was not guided to the target, and somebody went through a schoolhouse and was killed. This is after the war now, so that project stopped.
Yeah. So the name Disney had nothing to do with Walt Disney.
No, Disney is just a stainless steel thing that
Okay.
would go 50 feet before it would explode.
Okay.
And Germans had a lot of anti-aircraft factories. Incidentally, there was a mission that we went in and we ran low on gas. So we landed at a British airfield south of London. And so I called the base and said they wanted me to come load up gas and come in there yet that night. He said, no mission for the next day. So we stayed overnight at this British airfield. And they were filming. I went out. I said I want the plane ready to go at 9 o'clock the next morning. And they said, well, we'll have it ready to go at 9 o'clock. We went out there and they were pumping it with one of these engine things with 3 people on each side, and they were pumping gas into that plane, in my plane at that time. And so, in the meantime, they scheduled another mission, and the guy assigned to my position was shot down. And so you wonder how, how lucky you were. And let's see. Well, I also, after the war, I got after 2 months in England, I got sent to Munich, Germany, and I became the booking officer of all the military flights out of Munich. and I was there until July of 1946. And then I got home and went into KU and enrolled, and I got in September of 46, and I went to KU and I met my first wife. And of course, there's a lot of things that went on. Another thing is that my office on Ludwigstrasse, Main Street of Munich. I had my European Air Transport Service booking office. I had 6 enlisted men for my staff and 3 Fryer lines and a Jeep driver, or weapons driver, And so I was mean enough to insist that everybody speak English in my office. And then I think that's the most thing I want to talk about.
Now, Emerson, the bookings office, what?
I booked all the fact is, a lot of German people would come to my booking office and says, I have secret ways of building a diesel engine better than any other engine in Germany. And they would go, and I'd book them on my airline to Frankfurt, where the intelligence people were of the Third Army. And that's the reason why they would come here, and I knew about what they were doing.
Huh.
We also, another thing that happened is the Russians were flying in from Berlin on our airlines, and our intelligence knew these were secret agents of the Russians, and they did. So my job was to book them in the Excelsior Hotel. And then I'd call them, they'd book them in a special room that was bugged.
Yeah.
And so we knew everything's going on. I knew we'd even fly. They were recruiting Luftwaffe pilots under our noses, paying them $275 a month to fly for the Russian Air Force or fly for the Russian airlines. So, I mean, our intelligence, I never was concerned about Russian intelligence, at least at that time. So just a lot of things were going on. One time I rode a passenger on a B-17, and we flew to Vienna. And this captain who was of our bomb group, he got drunk, and he stole the Russian Jeep. And his crew members were selling packs of cigarettes with full of sawdust to the Russians. And boy, we were really glad to get out of town. Well, I tell you, I had the pleasure of flying a C-47 on my 86th birthday at Great Bend, and then I also flew a C-45. And my next to the last flight in the Air Force was on a C-45, and one of the landing gears wouldn't hung loose and just flopping in the wind. And the controller, we couldn't see that, but the control tower said, "I think you got a loose wheel." And so this was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon or so. They made us fly until 7 o'clock to burn up all the gas. And then came in, made a belly landing, and came in on one wheel. And another thing, I had to land the first half of the runway because it was a GCA condition with the landing with instruments on the other half of the runway. And so we came in and landed, and luckily, when the wing dropped down and hit the concrete, the wing tip, I hit the brake and it collapsed into the good wheel. And so I bellied it in, it S off the runway, and then I had the co-pilot and I were only two aboard, and this was a Beech twin-engine plane, AT-17 that we were flying, or C-45, and at that time my co-pilot, he couldn't get his seatbelt unbuckled; it was too tight. But being the commander and chicken like I was, I went out first. And then the next thing I knew, I didn't walk away from this landing. I ran away from this landing. You understand? Because we didn't know. You never know you're going to have a fire, you know. But the thing about it is, I just about got killed with a darn fire truck. This is dark now, see? And I had to jump out of his way.
We're real glad you're here today.
And so I had to take a confidence ride. That's standard procedure in the Air Force. You fly the next day.
Oh, so you had to do that.
You have to do that. And then the FBI checked the plane because a bolt come loose and it wouldn't pull that gear down, see? Mm-hmm. Well, I think that kind of ends my story for today.
You said you were the last living member of your
Crew.
crew.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gone to your reunions?
Oh, yes, I went to most of my reunions. Jan too.
But they have quit. They didn't have not enough
The
left
fact
in
is,
there
the day
to go,
before,
so they canceled them.
9/11. We were in Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
and we flew home that day
Oh my!
from Washington, D.C.
Was
And
that-
so
We just got out of there
we
in
just got
time.
it, and I can have breakfast here the next morning, and I saw that plane fly into
God.
the building, second building.
Yeah.
Yeah, had we not left at that time, we would not have been able to leave for about a week. They said
That's
they
right,
would have.
$200 a day.
They would have kept us
Yeah,
all there in the
that was-
hotel. We
This
wouldn't have been able to
Marriott
leave.
in Washington, D.C., Baltimore.
Emerson, about, we all know about, Hitler, the villain, but in relationship to that, and you're in the service, and then the war's ending, well, what was the feeling there, when you found out that?
War is over.
The funny part about this war is we knew very little about Hitler killing the Jews. Very little.
Okay, yeah, we were talking about that yesterday.
And why, I don't know.
Yeah.
In fact, is one mission, I think we bombed a prisoner of war camp or a camp. Maybe had American troops in it. My navigator and bombardier, they said, let's go between these thunderheads and drop these bombs. We don't want to take them home. Mm-hmm. And as we went through the clouds here, I saw these barracks lined up in rows.
Oh, there.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was the sad thing about pilots. They did not know what damage they were doing down
in fact, most of
below.
my bombs,
They didn't know the
I have
damage.
no hang-ups about the war because most of my bombs went through clouds.
Yeah, you couldn't see.
And the one raid, Alzen raid, we did see a train pulling out of this town about the size of St. John. And we bombed the tail end of the train out. But the fighters got the front end.
Oh
We
dear.
came in later and got in. Another thing that I saw was there was another town like St. John, maybe a little bigger. The thing was the target was covered up, so we had target of opportunity, and we had already dropped our bombs. But another bomb group we were flying along beside, there was a hospital train in. And you could see the red squares on the top of the cars. There were about 6 or 8 cars there. And then this dumb bomb group, they dropped bombs on that train. What do you think? Wiped the town flat because it's full of ammunition.
Oh, really?
Oh my!
Well, when you were in the war, then you had to stay in Germany a year after, and would you meet German people who really didn't like you because of what we did to them?
Well,
I often wondered about that, 'cause he lived right in
They told
Munich.
me what the one Fräulein told me. She says, how could you, had your grandparents warn Germany to drop bombs on your relatives?
Yeah, that's
She
true.
couldn't understand that, but she was a real Nazi.
Yeah.
She was trained in it. Her father was a bridge builder on the Autobahn, and she really loved Hitler, but the other two didn't.
Can't imagine.
What was the Autobahn?
That's the four-lane highway. That's what Eisenhower desired.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's how come we got up.
turnpikes.
It's a speedway, isn't it?
Hmm?
The speedway, so
Yeah.
to speak.
Yeah. Then you can drive on the Autobahn. You can drive 200 miles an hour.
When I went to Germany, that was the thing that really you really scared because, well, you know, we had laws about what the speed limit is here in the United States, and everybody would just go on 200 miles an hour.
Right.
You know? Here we were going like turtles.
Oh,
See, another thing that Hitler did, he took the Autobahn. You know, there was 4 lane.
Yeah.
Then he would put concrete on the straight pass of the autoway and make runways for airplanes out of the Autobahn.
Yeah.
And then they would move their planes from one force to another beside the Autobahn, you know, so they wouldn't be in the same place.
Yeah.
And of course, another thing too, the Me-262s is the German jet.
Okay.
And I saw 7 German jets try to shoot down a straggling B-17, and they couldn't shoot it down.
Oh,
Because the B-17 could go faster.
No, it was because it was an instructor training 6 students,
oh,
and they all came in at the 4 o'clock position, which is that position from you, and they would chop their throttles, shoot, and give her the gun instead of coming through at 500 mile an hour. And see, I went to Augsburg Airfield in Germany after the war, and there were 17 Me-262s had their nose wheels wiped out. Because if you know anything about flying airplanes, when you pull your throttle back, the propellers act as an air brake. In a jet, you pull the throttle back, there is no air brake. So they run off the end of the runway and wipe their nose wheels out.
Did you feel like while you were in the service, if you were serving 4 hours a day and then you had the rest of the time free, did you learn anything about where you were at in the country, in England?
Oh,
or-
sure. We knew exactly where we were at all the time. We had navigators that told us where we were at. you know.
So you really saw a lot more than a lot of people did that were in the service because of
yes,
where you
very
were.
much. Yeah, we had a court that, of course, there's things that happen when you're on a mission. But we were going on a mission one time, and here comes this English-speaking voice, very clear English, says, "What is the mission today? I missed briefing."
oh,
And he said that 3 times, and finally somebody in our group says, "You dang kraut, get off the air." and of course, another thing the Germans did, they had a corridor over the Netherlands. They just had one anti-aircraft gun in, just one, and then he would get one B-17 probably every mission. But the reason why they had this corridor is so when the planes turned towards their target, they would alert fighters in that area. Be looking out for us. You know, I remember one time, my second mission was Nuremberg, and my co-pilot was flying formation, and I was watching. Here comes an anti-aircraft gun in front of us, shooting, exploding right at eye level. And the flat shells go umbrella up, you know, so they to get you. But this was eye level, and I was watching. Is it getting closer to me or further away from me? And he never got any closer. He stayed right there about 50 feet in front of us.
You're lucky you came back home, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So many.
But your whole crew came home.
Oh, yeah. My ball gunner is the one that could have got the Purple Heart. Because when we got those 8 burst under our airplane, one of them went through his sight glass, and the sight glass shattered, and they cut his hands through his gloves, the flying glass. And so he was deserving the Purple Heart, but that's the ball gunner.
Now, what is the ball gunner? Is that the one down below?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
so-
the bottom.
Okay.
And it's sure death if you can't get that ball thing to roll up for landing and you belly land.
So how many people were on a plane like that, a B-17? How many were on your
Well,
crew?
there was 9 and they went down to 8.
So that would be pilot, co-pilot, engineer, navigator,
Bombardier,
bombardier,
radio operator.
radio operator.
Now, actually, when we also did another bombing. It was about radar, and so we would have an extra bombardier. He would drop by radar.
You did have radar then, yeah.
Yeah, but that's just
Just the beginning?
certain planes. Just the lead planes had radar.
So it was one of your crew members that wanted to be the lead plane, and that's,
Well, he was the real navigator.
yeah, a real navigator. He navigated that, didn't
Yeah, that's right.
he?
And he was 5 years older than I was, and he let me know he wasn't going to take orders from a goddamn pilot. Kid
A
pilot.
kid pilot,
Kid
yeah,
pilot.
20 years old. And,
Did that cause you very many problems? So
No. He always cleaned it. He ordered the tail gunner to clean his guns. And I says, everybody in this crew cleans their own guns, and that's when he made that statement.
That's when he got after you, huh?
well, that took courage on your part, Emerson.
Well, I'll tell you, your crew is pretty much equal
Yeah.
on a flight crew.
They have to be.
Yeah.
So he evidently found his place eventually.
Well, you may have found another pilot.
No, I
Emerson, you said your group doesn't get together anymore, but I've heard of other groups that the children
Yes.
carry on the
It
group.
could be our group formed an organization for the children, but I have never heard from them since it's been formed.
I just wondered, but I have a friend in Wichita that she always went, and she carried on. It was her father-in-law that was served in the service, and she's organized get-togethers before.
This is the patch that I'm wearing, and this is a picture that is in the Smithsonian Institute of our bomb group. It was one of the first ones. And the thing I need to say is that the 303rd Bomb Group is the one that has the most, the greatest records.
Do you have a picture of your crew?
Yeah, right here.
Might
There's
wanna-
a picture of the crew right there.
And yeah, there they are. And Emerson, tell them which one you are there.
well, let us see. I know we can.
Can you pick that out?
Can you tell which one's the tallest? Were you the tallest?
Yeah.
Yep.
He's on standing on here on the
Left.
right side, standing. Who's the
And
guy
then
that had?
co-pilot was right beside me.
Where's
And
that guy that give you always orders all the time? He's the only one that's got that cap on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. But I think it's
But I was going to give you the numbers. We had they lost 79 enemy. They apparently shot down 79 planes, and the bombs dropped was 26,346 tons. 26,346 tons. They shot down 378 airplanes and probably shot down another 104.
Now, Emerson, when you say they, are you talking, is it
The-
just your plane
my-
or is
my
your
bomb
group?
group,
Your
my
group,
bomb
Your
group.
group.
Okay.
And how many planes were in your group?
Well, usually had around 60 total planes.
But they were in groups. You were in groups.
Well, we had squadrons. There were four
Squadrons, yeah.
squadrons. Four squadrons. When you go on a mission, there would be 13 planes. I was a squadron lead, and I'd be in charge of 13 planes.
Okay.
And sometimes we would have the 14th plane, and it would screw up the bomb group ahead of all the planes. So it had a camera aboard, so the pictures would be all developed. So when you came back from your mission, they would brief you. You would brief the briefers what these pictures meant to them. And incidentally, two of my missions, I was the camera plane, and I dropped pamphlets. Two missions. That's one of my first 10 missions. I dropped pamphlets. And we call one of them is "This is the end." I remember that in German.
Oh,
And of course, the bad part is that I had this scrapbook of all this, and I took it to the library, and they had 30 days showing off of them, and they lost that red book, and they lost my strikes. And also, I had 6 instruments off of Me-262 German jets. They were taken to. And that's well. Anyway, I want to say they lost. Our group lost 761 aircraft. And we had 817 planes killed in action, and 729 prisoners of war, and 67 walked out of Germany, walked out of France.
walked out.
Yeah,
They had been prisoners?
They didn't get captured.
They didn't get captured.
There were 64 ditched and rescued. That's probably North Sea. And 29 Swiss internees. Sometimes the planes would land in Switzerland instead of trying to make it back through France.
Well, do you think we got about as much as we could get out of
Oh,
this?
it's fascinating.
Oh, so interesting.
Well,
I just can't get over the fact that you were Hell's Angels when you were learning, and then you got to be.
Got to fly.
That's wonderful.
And that didn't mean anything to me at the time.
No, but now.
I tell you what, all these guys that were in the Hells Angels Air Force, they really didn't like it when these motorcyclists
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
their
got
name
their
over.
name.
They were
Stole
very
our name.
upset.
Well, they degraded you.
They
Yeah.
sure did.
Yeah.
Yes.
And of course, I have pictures of all my missions, you know.
So, what was the insignia on your plane? Did you have a
The
beautiful
red
lady?
tail.
Red tail. Okay.
See that C in the middle? Red
Oh
tray.
yeah. Okay.
Where is the C? I don't see it.
Let's see here. I think
Got
there's a
another-
better picture of it right
See in
here.
the middle of that triangle.
So the A underneath the wings on this, does that stand for
No,
American?
that's another group. That's another group.
So how many groups were there in the war? I mean, how many? You talked about
Oh,
you had 4 squadrons. And you had a
about
group,
80.
About 80.
80 groups. Yeah. But that would include B-24s. Also,
You know, it just seems almost miraculous to me that they could build that many planes
Right.
that quickly.
it only cost, that plane only cost $225,000.
Whack
Built in
that.
Wichita.
200.
Built in Wichita and Lockheed and Lane
So when a
Capital.
plane's
Now, that's
flying
not very
over,
much money compared to what
Oh,
a plane
no.
costs.
Not today.
how do you know if it's American or someone else?
Okay, good point. I was just going to talk about coming back from the mission. One time, a B-17 of another insignia came up and flew up right beside me. and they came so close I could see their German helmets.
Wow.
But you
And
couldn't
there-
tell from the plane.
Did he wave
all.
at you?
It was a B-17.
It's a
But I mean, there
B-17.
was no marking on it.
Yeah,
to
he was. It was a yellow tail with an L on it.
How did they get that B-17?
Then they probably shot it down
And then
or
they took
And
it
then
over.
captured it.
Yeah.
captured it. And the thing is, what's so suspicious about it, it was so clean. See, airplanes had dirt and sun on them and everything because they flew every day.
Yeah. And it was so
It was
clean.
ugly.
But they didn't shoot at you? Or
No, but all the guns in the squadron, they were pointing
Were-
right at me.
Right at him.
they knew.
Did he
Oh,
speak to
my.
you?
Huh?
Did he speak to you on the radio?
No,
No, he didn't.
Why didn't they shoot then? Why didn't they shoot?
Well,
They probably
you don't know for sure that
Yeah.
who they were, but we could tell by the helmets they were German
Oh,
helmets.
goodness sake.
But there
That
were no
close.
stripes or stars or
That's-
anything underneath that you could just tell somebody flying over was a.
No, you wouldn't get. Yeah, it'd be just like that underneath.
But
See,
the
but it wouldn't have
Germans
any
would have
numbers. The
theirs.
numbers are on the tail,
Yeah.
both sides of the tail.
Yeah.
Well, how did they decide when you were called into duty to, did they give everybody a test and decide you can become a pilot, or how did that all happen?
Well, I don't like to talk about that. But the thing is, my observation was that all the Jews and all the New Yorkers became navigators and bombardiers. None of them made pilots. Well, there's
Interesting.
very,
That's
very few.
strange. Isn't that strange?
Interesting.
And I can tell you we had a pilot that was Jewish, and he aborted 16 missions.
Oh,
In
my.
other words, when he came to the lines, he'd turn around and come back. And so they took him off. Now,
That's interesting, Emerson.
huh?
Did they think that the Midwesterns?
Well, they were better.
No, I mean they had more
Yeah,
tenacity.
it's for the farm boys. They like
Yes.
those farm boys.
I didn't know the word.
They excelled at everything, yeah.
Yeah. And their airfields are all out here too. You look.
Well, Emerson, you evidently have gained a lot of weight because I don't know how you ever got into that little plane.
In the back door.
Well, this has been fascinating, and thank you for your preparation.
Yes.
Yes, Emerson.
Well, I had these books are for my history, and
Do you have one of those for each of your boys?
no. Let's see. Every mission is in here that I flew on, and in fact, the whole group. We had 4 squadrons.
You kept that up as you went along,
No,
right?
no,
No, you did this after you...
Did somebody put that together for you?
I did. I put it together.
Okay. You used to be a little 4-H boy.
But see,
about
this book is a lot of it is duplication of this book. And you can on the internet you can find where every mission that I flew, the position I flew.
Oh, Emerson. How interesting.
Yeah, see,
I was telling Mert this
see
afternoon.
right there. You got I underlined shields, but this is
Okay.
how the squadron looked.
Emerson, I was telling Mert this afternoon as we were driving back from Great Bend, how every time we would have bridge, Rick would hang around the edges waiting to ask you questions about World War II. He was enamored with Emerson. If Emerson was coming, Rick was there with questions. And Emerson was always gracious and would answer.
Yeah, see,
Tell him something.
first I flew mainly one airplane for the first 10 missions. The same plane. It had 75 missions on it, and there's all kinds of patches. See that what they do, the sharpener will go through it. They would patch it, put a little square patch over it. Well, this 516, the plane that I flew, with 75 missions. If you wanted a piece of armor plate any place on the airplane, next morning you'd be there. a 1/4-inch armor plate. And so there's so much armor plate on this plane, you could hardly keep up with the formation.
So heavy.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness. 75 missions, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, what do you know?
And it was called My Darling, but it's not a very pretty name, you know. It had a picture of a gal on it.
That's what I wondered.
Well, I noticed there's a gal on this one too.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. But here,
Yeah, Bobby, I've shown
I should show you a picture of
Oh, I
one of
didn't
my.
see her in it.
Towards the front, I think.
Yeah.
Let's read another one.
Why didn't you pay attention? I mean, I looked at it, but I didn't pay attention.
Okay, I had you just put
In-
that.
Incidentally,
Oh,
this is a thing appeared in the Kansas Bar Journal, and this is written by Matthew Keenan, who is Larry Keenan's son, and it gives stories about 20 of us here.
Oh, Emerson. Have you gone to the college where they were taking
Yes,
the,
I've
the
been there,
histories?
but I never left anything.
But you didn't, did they take your verbal history?
No,
No,
no.
because I know they were doing that at one point in time.
Aubrey Bradley was in law school with me, but a year ahead of me.
Oh.
See, after I came back to KU, I kept flying with the troop carrier outfit. That's where I learned to fly the C-47
Oh,
and the C-45 and a T-6. I also a single engine fighter too, you know. And Aubrey Bradley also went with me. We were in the same squadron there. And the thing unique about him was there was only one B-17 that got shot down the last mission of the war, and it was Aubrey Bradley.
oh,
And they had to stay in a haystack one night, and then they messed around. Then they got sent to a prison camp, and then they finally got released. You know, 4 or 5 days. But the troop carrier outfit that I was in at Olathe, when I was going to law school, they got called in the Korean War, got called to active duty. And I was supposed to go, but I had 6 months left of law school. And I asked to be deferred. And I got a deferment. The rest of all, I had to go to London. And Aubrey Bradley, while he was standing there at the air base in London, 2 Navy jets collided over him, and they spilled gasoline all over him, and his skin was emasculated, you know, by burns, you know. And then they discharged him 4 months later because they didn't want to take care of him.
Oh, I bet that's right.
And they had Bob Coleslaw, another classmate of mine, went to bat for him and sued the Air Force, and took care of him. But there I am. See, there's the picture.
Emerson, that's wonderful.
Matthew Keenan.
Well, that was great that he could do that.
Thank you very much.